Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 37 of Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast.
Ooh.
Tonight we'll be discussing probably the most exciting non-League of Legends weekend for Cloud9, as well as gather a little bit about the MSI group stage. I'm your host, havokpus, and today I'm joined by...
Frozencreek. I'm here. I had some wine, but I'm not too much. I had enough where it's like good for your heart wine.
What kind of wine, specifically?
Merlot from Aldi's, so it was like $2.99, I think, but
Ooh.
it tastes like $6 wine.
I hear that if you put wine in a blender and blend it for a little bit, it aerates it and it makes it taste better. Or like it brings out more of the flavor in it.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
It only works with red wine, I think. I'm not sure how well it works with white wine.
I also saw apparently you can mix red wine with Coke. I haven't tried it, but that's allegedly a thing. But this is not a drinking podcast, and we do have someone else here with us.
Hello, I'm Ian. I'm back again after a extended hiatus due to college being work intensive. I also have something to drink with me. It's a nice glass of water.
Gotta get that high quality H2O.
Dude, hell
I
yeah,
have that
I got
too.
that tall glass of tap water.
It's so hot here now that it's like not winter here.
Where do you live?
Michigan. It was like 85 today.
In Michigan?
Yeah. I'm sweating
Oh,
my damn
wow.
balls off.
That's actually really hot for Michigan. Wow.
Well, it's hot for right now. So,
Yeah, I know. In Texas, it was like 85, 90 as well today. So
yeah, so suck it.
that's really weird that
Yeah.
it's the same temperature in Michigan as it is in Texas.
Yeah, but global warming is not a thing.
Speaking of high temperatures, you guys, the summer is a-comin', and the tank top powers are starting to resonate, and we're gonna talk about the success of Cloud9 Summer in a bit. But first, let's move on to kind of some sad news. Dota 2 has been disbanded. Sadly, Dota 2 was kind of struggling for a while, not really getting through a lot of qualifiers and such. Europe is kind of a tough region for Dota, I believe. Very unfortunate. Baby Knight will remain as a streamer for C9, but all the other players have been released. They will scatter to the winds and hopefully find future success with other teams and such. Very sad.
Yeah. I can't say I'm much of a Dota fan, but when they first came on, they were looking really, really good. I don't know the tournaments that well, but I believe like right when they came on, they won a tournament almost immediately, and then it's just kind of just gone downhill from there. So I don't really blame them that much. I think that there's better opportunities out there in Dota.
Yeah, I don't keep up with Dota at all, so I can't really say much about this.
We might return to Dota. Who knows? I know someone commented in the subreddit thread about it. They were saying how like, oh, Cloud9 can totally pick up like Ninja in Pajamas Dota team or something in like North America and get like an NA team going again. I don't know. We'll have to see. It seems that we kind of jump in and out of Dota every few years.
Yeah, I remember watching the International a few years ago, and there was like C9 was part of that, and that was cool. And then it was like, oh, there is like the C9 team now, and it's like, oh, there isn't one. And I was like, wait, you guys had one for that big tournament though. What happened? It's like, yeah,
a very unstable scene. Yeah, hopefully we'll return and bring back some dank memes to Dota 2. Moving on to Call of... What?
I said hell yeah.
Okay, hell yeah, sorry. Moving on to Call of Duty news, Cloud9 has dropped Ricky and Lacefield and replaced them with Gosu Crew players Exotic and Priest, or as I like to call him, Priesta! is it an upgrade to the team? Yes or no? We'll certainly find out at the Global Pro League Stage 2 qualifier on June 15th, and then MLG Anaheim is actually a little bit further off from that, so hopefully they'll do good. Ricky and Lacefield didn't really seem like they were kind of gelling with Ace and Assault. They were just kind of... No, not Ace. Damn it. What's his name? The leader guy. Fuck, I can't believe I forgot his name. Aches! That's it. It was a letter off. But, yeah, they didn't seem like they were really gelling. I think Ricky was kind of a new player as well, so some of the stuff he was doing maybe not have been ideal for, like, Pro League type gameplay, but hopefully these new pickups will reinvigorate the team.
So is Call of Duty back in full swing yet? It seems like they're always in off season for some reason.
It's kind of sporadic. They have like a pro league that plays kind of, and then they have like MLG tournaments every now and then. But it's certainly not as like scheduled as like League of Legends or CSGO.
Yeah, I never really hear a whole lot about COD because I know CSGO has big majors, like major tournaments that everything, like all the well-known teams will attend. And then League obviously has LCS, so it's like super scheduled. And then COD is just like, I'll occasionally hear something about it, but it's not like, oh yeah, there's this really huge COD tournament coming up. I just don't ever hear anything about it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. You'd think they'd try to build it up more since CSGO and other esports are starting to really take off.
Yeah, especially CSGO. Like, I feel like COD could really not necessarily leech off the success of that, but it could like use the success of CSGO to try and make itself more a legitimate esport. Because a lot of people kind of look down on COD as like, oh, it's the game that a lot of casuals
It's kind
play.
of like a bro game.
Yeah, exactly.
If you look
it's like
at it, kind of, yeah.
It's like if you want to try hard in a shooting game, go play CSGO. But I feel like COD could really use that momentum that CSGO has to legitify. What's the word for that? Solidify. There we go.
Yes, solidify or legitimize.
Solidify themselves. Yeah, legitimize, solidify themselves as a real legitimate esport that should be taken seriously.
Yeah, I mean the potential is there, especially with Infinite Warfare. It's probably I would say the most fun Call of Duty game, since you have like jetpacks and you can slide around and the weapons are kind of crazy, and you have like robot powers. So it's a really fun game, and I think they could really use CS:GO's kind of success, or like their blueprint, is maybe like a stepping stool to elevate themselves up to trying to be more of a, I guess, like a premier esport instead of something that's kind of played competitively but not enough to get people talking about it.
Yeah, I feel like the game definitely has the amount of depth that's required for an esport to be successful. I just don't know how they would need to market the game to be able to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, there's strategy and accuracy and all the things like you see in CS:GO.
Oh yeah.
To maybe a lesser extent, it's in Call of Duty. They just need to maybe either fine-tune the game to where it can be more accessible to a more competitive market, or, like you said, just kind of fix the marketing to make it look better.
Yeah, and I think as well, the success of Overwatch could help COD as well, just since they're both shooters.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess moving on to half of the big Cloud9 news, the CS:GO team is at Subaru the Subaru Invitational last weekend, and before they played, I was kind of worried about the future success of this team. They were looking really shaky, they were looking really inconsistent, and I was even saying, maybe we need some roster changes, maybe we need to take out some of the people that are really underperforming, put some new blood in, and they end up going undefeated in this tournament. So I guess, Cloud9 continues to shut me up whenever I have reservations about their teams.
So isn't CSGO, isn't CLG, last I heard they were a pretty bad CSGO team, right?
I know
TSM's kind of shaped up
TSM's CS:GO team is really bad. I'm not sure about CLG. I know NRG is kind of mediocre. We usually beat them, or at least go 1-1 with them pretty consistently.
Yeah, and isn't SK
Um,
supposed to be like really really good?
yeah. SK is
Optics
from
good too.
Brazil, and yeah, and Brazil's CS:GO scene is really big there, and they have a few really good teams.
Okay, because yeah, I thought it was funny how C9 had the exact same record versus CLG as they did versus SK.
So I don't think that this says that the team is ready to go in the future. I think that they did perform well here, but I'm not sure if it's conclusive enough to say that they deserve to continue going together if they're going to keep on underperforming based on a lot of people's expectations. Now, if our expectations are in line with how they're performing and we're not expecting them to win tournaments per se, then I think that they're doing okay. But I still think that there is a lot of potential here, and I don't think that Cloud9 has quite tapped the potential of this team yet, just because it seems they're always losing 1v1s, and they always stupidly turn around and somehow managed to mess up a lot of series against good teams.
I think that I kind of disagree with your point about this not being as indicative, indicative. I think that this can at least be used as a stepping stone to put them in the right direction. A few of the rounds in semis and finals, particularly in this tournament, they were behind. I think sometimes by like a really significant margin, and they were able to come in the clutch and really come back. So I think it shows that, you know, under high pressure situations, the team can clutch out and do well. Probably it's more of a strategy issue instead of a player issue, because we have really good players, you know. Sometimes Shroud really underperforms, but every once in a while he does really well. You know, Skadoodle does well, Nothing does well. I think it's more about just continuing to build up the team synergy and the team strategy. And this can certainly be a really good stepping stone to point them more in the right direction. I think that certainly gives them their confidence back. The fact that they have 2-0'd everyone that they faced in this tournament and won. I think it's a really good sign, and I think we should at least expect them to at least get like top 3 in a lot of the tournaments they go to. At least North American tournaments.
Yeah, I would hope that's how they would do in North American tournaments at least, but I think it buys them some more time together. But I think that up until now that question should have been asked. Maybe not like to the point of making changes quite yet, but like in like a formulative state. And I think that this buys them more time, but I don't think it's quite indicative of a long-term trend of them doing better. I think that it just buys them more time. But 2-0 SK Gaming is a huge feat that not many teams do. So I'm going to stay positive here. Try and stay positive.
Positivity
here.
is key. Ian, do you have any thoughts about the CSGO?
Not really. CSGO, I keep up with a little more than Dota, but still not enough to really talk in depth about anything.
Okay.
I know like a very very broad overview of the scene, but
it's pretty easy to watch if you don't watch
it's really
it.
exciting.
Oh yeah, I enjoy watching it.
People to die.
Yeah, like I understand how to watch it and it's entertaining. I just don't keep up with it a ton.
Yeah.
I keep up with Smash a lot more.
Well,
that Smash is probably like my secondary esport that I keep up with a lot.
All right. Well, I guess that's topical.
All right. Yeah, I guess we'll transition over to Smash playing. Mango was at the Royal Flush tournament in Vegas. Ally was there too, I think, but he didn't get past the kind of the big pool group stage thing.
Yeah, I don't keep up with Smash 4 too much. I keep up with Melee Smash, not really Smash 4 as much. Ally hasn't been doing too hot lately though, as far as
he got
can tell.
top 3 or top 4 in the last tournament he was in.
Yeah, he's really good. He's just not not as good as it feels like he needs to be, because he's supposed to be like one of the top 2 players in the world, but he seems to not quite play up to those standards sometimes. But Smash is a game that you can, if you just caught on a bad day, then you can get like a really poor placing in a tournament.
Yeah, it seems to be really performance heavy, and if you're just not feeling it, you know.
Oh yeah. If you're not having a good day, it can be like you can just go out super hard. But yeah, Mango was having a fantastic day.
He crushed it
at this. Yeah, it was actually insane how well he did at this tournament. He didn't make like some insane losers run like he's done in the past, but he made a pretty good one. He eliminated Armada to win the tournament. He eliminated Hungrybox, Drugged Fox, and Shroomed, and he also sent the Moon, Mafia, and Mike's into losers. So like that's super impressive. Yeah, this was the first tournament that he's looked really, really good. Like, he's looked all right in other tournaments, but he hasn't really lived up to the Mango name recently, it seems like, because he's always had trouble versus Hungrybox recently. Armada's given him a lot of trouble, but it seems like he really figured out what he wanted to do versus those 2 people this tournament. Because he hasn't had a ton of trouble versus Leffen, but he didn't have to face Leffen in the bracket at all this tournament, so that was really good for him. And then Armada sent him to losers the first time, but it seemed like Mango really figured out what he needed to do to beat Armada in the grand finals, because the first game of the set that Mango played with Armada, where Mango got sent to losers, he like just destroyed the very first game. It was like, it wasn't even close. It looked like the set was just over at that point. He annihilated Armada. And I think a lot of what the commentators were saying was that was because Mango was playing so aggressive and that he was playing so unpredictably that Armada wasn't used to that. But Armada being Armada adapted to that and ended up taking the next 3 games, I believe. I don't think it went to game 5. If it did, I could be wrong. But the grand final set, Mango just like came back, and it was close. It did go to 5 games, but he clutched it out, and he clutched it out in a convincing fashion. It wasn't like super close, like, oh, it could go either way, just one up smash or one grab could finish it. It was like he didn't have very much percent on him when he finished off Armada's last stock. And so Mango looked really, really good at this tournament. And if he can keep it up, then I think he'll definitely solidify himself as not that he was ever not a god, but he'll definitely re-solidify himself as one of the best in the world, because he was having trouble recently. So that's kind of my thoughts on the tournament.
No, yeah, for sure. That's actually a pretty good breakdown. Yeah, I was kind of nervous because I had came into watching the tournament because I was busy doing other stuff. I think I was watching I saw a movie or something that day, but I tuned in to watch him face Hungrybox, and
Yeah.
I was really nervous because, like, oh man, I don't really know Mango's record, but Hungrybox is like, he's ranked really high in the Smash,
Yeah,
in the Melee scene.
Hungrybox is basically like number 2 right now in terms of like number 1 goes to Armada. Like, no, that's not even a question. I know that Mango won this tournament, but Armada's like the most consistent Melee player in the past like 2 years. And then second, basically uncontested, goes to Hungrybox, because he's just been every tournament he doesn't have to play Armada in, he basically wins. And then below that is like, you can kind of that can be up for debate. It was like maybe Mewtwo King or Leffen, but below that it was like Mango was below that, because he'd been struggling a lot, and especially versus Hungrybox. Hungrybox was giving him a lot of trouble, but he really seems to have figured out what he wants to do now. in terms of his play style. And I think a lot of that might be because he's picking Falco back up a lot. And Falco might be teaching him more about the game and like, here's what you need to do in all these situations, because he played Fox almost exclusively for a long time. He always did have a Falco, but now he's really, really hitting the Falco. Like he's grinding his Falco out a lot. And so that might also be helping him figure out his identity again, like with a play style that fits him.
Yeah, he handled Hungrybox's Jigglypuff in pretty dominant fashion. He only lost one round to him in that match.
Yeah,
and
he took the set.
It was a really convincing game, which was really surprising. And the grand finals match between him and Armada was probably the most exciting thing I've ever seen, especially with just looking at the crowd and how they react every time he like won a round, or when
the crowd
when he finally like
the
won
crowd
the
wanted
thing.
Mango to win so bad. Because it had been forever
he
since
was
we'd
definitely
seen
the
him win
favorite.
something, and the crowd always roots for Mango. Like it doesn't matter who he's playing; they're always going to root for him. He's like the
so
crowd
likable.
favorite. Yeah, a lot.
And
Like
beautiful.
that's why he has a lot of fans. But
Yeah, it was a really hype moment,
especially versus Armada, because Armada's not from the U.S. He's from Sweden, and so it's like the two Swedes, Leffen and Armada, had dominated the game for a while, and so it's so refreshing to see a non Swedish player like get beaten by Mango. Or no, it's so refreshing to see a non-Swedish player win. And that player being Mango to beat Armada.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was super exciting. It was a really great weekend for Cloud9 overall. Got some pretty decent, tournament wins from some, I guess you would say, like, fan favorite teams. So really, really good stuff. Moving on, I guess, to the MSI group stages. I don't know if you guys watched it. I did.
NA sucks dick.
Oh my god, we're terrible. How does TSM consistently choke internationally?
NA's so bad, dude.
They do so well domestically. They're like a big fish in a little pond. They do so well, only to fall flat on their face the moment they get out into deeper water.
It's a fucking embarrassment. Oh.
I'm also really concerned for Parth and Svenskeren's job security.
I don't think Sven's going to have any problems. I think that he's going to be fine as long as he comes back and doesn't shit the bed whenever he's playing like in
Not
the
Lee
LCS.
Sin.
Yeah. But Parth, on the other hand, I think there's a high chance that he gets moved into an analyst role and they put someone else
he
as
really
coach.
screwed them over
Because his pick
really,
ban phase is pretty
especially
bad.
in the tiebreaker, he really hurt the team because they drafted like Ezreal Karma first round instead of going for like Lee Sin or going for like a jungler pick earlier or something. And then they gave Svenskeren Graves, and they had like so little hard CC to help the Graves out.
Yeah, if you pick Karma Ezreal,
they really struggled.
You better be picking someone that has some lockdown. Like you need someone in the jungle that like Elise or Lee Sin that has the ability to engage in some form, not fucking Graves that has nothing but damage.
Yeah, I felt that pick was, they just really didn't trust Turtle to be on anything that wasn't like just a really safe, low economy pick that he could just kind of farm out. It was really kind of hard to watch them play because they won some, but the games that they lost, sometimes it was like, you guys were winning for the whole game. How did you lose?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the G2 game, they were pretty much ahead the whole time, but then G2 just scaled, and they just out-damaged TSM in the late game.
Yeah, I think part of that might be just TSM lacking the confidence to try and definitively end the game. And
yeah, I saw a couple articles where they were saying like TSM is just too afraid to pull the trigger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like they can do really good. They do really well at setting up, but when it comes to like making the really crucial decisions, they just don't really know what to do sometimes.
Yeah, like they'll be like trying to set up for Baron or something, and the other team will come to them, but they end up not wanting to fight the other team. They just kind of concede, and it's like, well, what are you doing? You have all this control, and you're in the lead. use that to your advantage, starve out the enemy team of vision, force them to come to you, catch them out in a bad spot. That's something that they seem to lack the not ability to do, but the decisiveness to do. They'll see the enemy team coming and be like, oh, do we really want to take this fight? And then by the time they decide what they want to do, it's already too late.
Yeah, and I think that's actually kind of been a little bit of a problem for them for a while. Not so much with double lift. Double lift's been a pretty decisive.
It's because double lift their shot caller.
Yeah, exactly. Without double lift, they've become like they kind of reverted a little bit.
Yeah, without double lift, it's just like they don't know what to do. Bjergsen has way too much pressure on him right now because he's trying to shot call and carry the game, which he's proven time and time again that he's not capable of doing. As good of a player as he is, he can't do both of those things at the same time and succeed, or not necessarily succeed, but like consistently outperform his opponent while trying to do both of those things simultaneously. They need someone who's a definitive shot caller as well as a definitive carry. And it can't be the same person. Yeah,
as far as Worlds goes, I really hope that Double Lift does kind of re-energize the team, because I want to see North America do well, even though they are kind of, not to say bitter rivals, but there are competitive rivals. We really want to beat them more than they beat us.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, I really hope Double Lift does kind of reinvigorate the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to beat them when they're at their best. I don't want to beat a weakened TSM.
Yeah,
I want to beat the strongest TSM possible.
I don't want to beat TSM because they suck. I want to beat TSM because we're better.
Exactly.
And I also think one last thing. I think this solidifies that Turtle is never getting a starting spot on that roster.
He's benched forever.
Like, his performance in these games was beyond awful. It's straight up embarrassing. He was walking into 5 people without his team even close to him for no reason. He was constantly getting caught out, not QSSing things at the right time, not being behind the right people when he needs to be in team fights. It was such a mess, man. Like, he never learns when enough is enough. He always tries to push it too far.
He's like a glorified Keith.
Yeah, exactly. He's Keith, but not...
If Keith were competent.
Yeah, he's like... Yeah, exactly.
That's
such a good way of putting it. He's Keith if Keith were able to make big plays.
Savage. I do think probably one of the more surprising, happy notes of MSI was getting to see Gigabyte Marines and Levi play.
Dude, Levi's so good.
Even though they lost out in the group stage, they were probably the most fun team to watch.
They surprised the hell out of me.
Thing. They showed no fear throughout the whole thing.
Oh yeah, even when they were playing SKT, their game plan was like, all right, we're going to go and we're going to go hard. And even if it doesn't work the first time, we're going to keep on going.
Yeah, and Levy on the Kha'Zix especially was monstrous.
Yeah, Levi can hard carry that team, man. Like, he impressed me so much. I think I said this on the other podcast that I do. It's like, if we don't see Gigabyte Marines back, we're gonna see Levi back on a different team.
I hope he gets imported into maybe a bigger region, because I think he certainly has potential. There are language barriers that he has to kind of get through.
Yeah,
if he has the potential to really grow and become
he has the potential to compete on
player.
A world stage. Absolutely. The only thing that might prevent him from doing so is the language barrier. Everything else is like he has all the tools he needs to succeed internationally.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another thing, WE beat SKT. They restored their name to their former glory by beating. I think they beat at least everybody.
Yeah, WE's looking really strong.
Yeah. Xie, I think especially, has been a really good focal point for their team.
Oh yeah, for sure. What do you think, Frozen? What are your opinions on the teams?
Yes. We've kind of muscled you out of this conversation.
Were we talking about the knockout stages?
Yeah, we're talking about the group stage.
Oh, the group stages. I didn't really watch it that much.
Oh, really?
You guys already talked about TSM floundering, but I think that SKT tried their best to pull off the infamous 7-1 in Brazil, But I can't tell if WE and Flash Wolves just stepped up to beat SKT, or SKT was playing sloppy, or which of those it would be. I think that SKT has been unequivocally above the rest so far, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how some of the bigger teams adapt coming into semifinals and finals going against SKT. But there are or there's maybe a team or two here who can beat SKT, but it's more out of being the historical SKT killer than anything else.
Yeah, we'll have to see, because I think the knockout stage is probably when teams really step up and start playing serious. I will say that watching SKT's performance was really kind of mind-blowing, because their approach to the game and how they play the game feels like extremely fluid. It's not going from like kind of like a stair-step thing where you go from one stage to the next. It feels very just so fluid and natural in what they're doing and how they do things.
I think the best way to describe SKT's play is optimal.
Yes.
It's not necessarily a flowchart of here is what we do in the early game and then an arrow pointing to here is transition into mid game where we will do this. It's very, like you said, it flows very, very well, and it's like, okay, here's what happened in the early game and here's what we do based off of that, and here's how we push our advantages that we got or didn't get. Like, here's how we need to play based on if we didn't win the early game. Here's how we play to ensure that we don't keep losing things. And it's very dynamic. It's not set in stone what they want to do.
Yeah, that's probably the best description.
And I think that's why
do.
they're so successful. Honestly, is not just because they have amazing players. Like, you can have amazing players on a team and still not do well. Just look at TSM a couple years ago. But SKT has this insane macro play that just, as soon as they get any kind of lead, or if they're even, it's just over. Because they manipulate the map in such a way that starves you out of literally everything. They starve you out of your jungle, they starve you out of dragons, they starve you out of farm, they take your turrets, and then they get Baron, and then they just win the game. It's so optimal and perfected that I just have yet to see a team step up to their level of macro play. We've seen World Elite beat them, but that was only because they smashed the laning phase so hard and they were able to beat them because they had such a big advantage. That wasn't because they went even with them and then outplayed them in the macro game.
Yeah, I think also, just to kind of piggyback off of the starving out point that you made, SKT just punishes extremely heavily. If you make one mistake, they will make sure that you regret that mistake as they're blowing up your Nexus like 20 minutes later.
Oh yeah, I can't remember specifically what game it was, but there was a quote from Freak where SKT got a 2k gold lead and Freak was like, oh yeah, this SKT has a massive gold lead, it's basically over now. And it was only 2k. But 2k gold down versus SKT is almost the equivalent of being 5 or 6k down versus any other team.
Yeah, and if you average that like around the board, that's only like a couple hundred per person, and they still managed to completely like shut down teams with that.
Yeah, they make such good use out of any kind of extra gold that they get, and not necessarily the gold lead, yes, tells you they're in the lead, but it doesn't necessarily tell you the whole story. They could also get, based on whatever kind of lead they got, it's like if they got that gold through kills, if they got that gold through taking objectives, it could be any kind of thing, but they always make such good use of whatever kind of a like lead they get. You see some teams that make good use of, oh, we got some towers, we make really good use of that, but if we get a bunch of kills in lane, we don't really know what to do with that until we start making the towers fall. Or the other way around, where it's like, yeah, we can get a bunch of kills and we know what to do with that, but we're really bad at objective play. SKT, it doesn't matter what kind of a lead they get. They know exactly what to do with it and exactly how to make you suffer as much as possible for giving them that lead.
Yeah, and what's crazy to me is that they can pick no engaged comps like Rumble, Karma, Graves, and still manage to pick fights when and in where they want to. And I think that that's something that only SKT can do compared to other teams.
Absolutely. It's so, that's one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive things to me to watch in League of Legends, is when a team picks a comp such as Rumble, Graves, a generic mid laner like that doesn't have a ton of CC but still does damage. We're trying to think of maybe like Fizz or something.
Orianna, Syndra, like it's not like a ton
Syndra,
of,
yeah, let's say
it's
Syndra.
like enough to follow up, but it's not enough to pick a fight.
It's not enough to like, it's not like Malphite level of engage. But yeah, like something like that, and then maybe, I don't know, Twitch or someone in the bot lane, something that doesn't have hard engage, and they manage to make it look so strong, like to the point there's no counterplay to it, even though they have almost no CC. And you see other teams play that, and they'll try and go in, and the team they try and go in on just scatters and then blows them up because they have no way of stopping the team from going in. They have no counter CC or counter engage. And so watching a team play a comp like that and execute it so well to such a degree of perfection is truly the mark of a team that is 100% in sync with each other, because you have to be in sync with each other 100% to be able to pull something off like that. Because if you miss one thing, if you miss your one stun as Syndra, or you miss your equalizer by just a little bit and it doesn't land on the entire team, it's over. There's nothing you can do. But if you do land everything at once, it works so well, and SKT does that better than anyone else.
Yeah, and it's crazy that it doesn't matter who you plug in. Like last season, they were playing with Duke in top lane, and that they were still beating anyone. But I think that they picked a little more engaged last season. But it doesn't matter who they plug in. I don't think who needs the best top laner that they've had, but they managed to completely dismantle teams and be so far ahead. No matter who they put in top or jungle. It's going to be interesting once they start switching out mid ADC and support, though.
Yeah, once Faker decides to step down, whenever that may be, I don't think any of us at this point can predict when that'll be, because he's been here for what, 4 seasons now, I want to say, and he's looked better and better every season. I don't know when that'll be, but whenever the time does come, I think that'll be the true test of how good is SKT's back end, like how good is their management and coaching staff, because we've seen them do it with every other position but never mid lane.
Yeah, Faker's only 21 also, so it's not like he's
it's
age or elimination age or high age.
It's not like he's approaching
21.
the age where he has to step down. He has a lot of years left in him if he so chooses to continue playing.
Yeah, he couldn't even drink last year at Worlds. He just turned 21 this month, so
that's crazy.
I'm not sure if it's going to be the Faker factor or if Coma leaves, if they're going to be.
I think if Coma leaves, then that will impact them the most out of anything else possibly happening, is if Coma leaves, because he's been with them since season 3. Like he's the one that brought them the world championship, and he's the one that has continued bringing them world championships. And so people always think of Faker as the face of SKT, but it really is Coma. He's done so much for that team, and it's so obvious when you look at it because they bring in new players every season, and every season they're consistently the best team in the world. It's like you can only attribute that to coaching.
I think the best analogy would be Coma is Bill Belichick and Faker is Tom Brady.
That's a pretty good one.
Except that the cheating.
Hey, just because it's not been announced yet doesn't mean that Faker's not run on some dodging scripts. It sure seems like it.
Those mouses were slightly deflated. I'll tell you, Fleur. I'll tell you, Frozen.
The mouse was deflated.
Yes. Deflategate
His
Part
keys
2.
Had a little extra bounce.
Oh man.
That's
funny.
I think we have a couple extra minutes. So, we talked about Call of Duty not being much of a big esport earlier. It's not really something that people follow per se, and I think a lot of people, especially Cloud9 fans, wouldn't have picked being a Cloud9 fan because of something like Call of Duty or Dota, and maybe even Smash 4. So, like, what's the difference between something like League of Legends, which is so established, versus some of these smaller esports, infrastructure-wise, and what can be done to build up esports from the ground up, picking smaller esports?
It's so hard to compare League to any other esport, at least in terms of infrastructure, because the way that Riot handles it is very, very Apple-esque. It's all in-house, very apart from like things like IEM. It's extremely regulated by Riot. They say what goes and what doesn't. They manage everything about the professional league, and they have a very tight grip on it, and everything is exactly how they want it to be. Whereas things like CSGO are very, and like CSGO and Melee especially, it's all done by the tournament organizers. It's very, not necessarily unstructured, but it's not like, okay, yeah, you're gonna go here to this tournament, and this is how it's like, here's who you're gonna play, this is how it's gonna work out. It's like, no, that's all done independently from, like, say, a company like Nintendo, because they don't touch the game at all. It's all community done. And so, and I believe Valve has a little bit of a hand when it comes to things like Dota and CSGO, but not nearly to the extent that Riot has. And so I think things like that, the way, or not necessarily CSGO, because CSGO already has a very established structure and system they already kind of use with the majors. But I think for Call of Duty, especially if Activision wants to see the game become more competitive, such as like a quote esports title, something like CSGO or Dota, I think that Activision, being the huge company they are, could absolutely step in and say, hey, we're going to set up a professional league for this, and we're going to run everything, and we're going to make sure that everything is working well, and that this is how things go. And I think that would be one way to really bring Call of Duty up into the esports world more so than it is now. It would really bring it, because they could sponsor things. They could say, hey, yeah, we're having this big tournament, and they could like put it in game. They could put things in the game to promote the tournaments and all that. And so I think Activision is the key for Call of Duty. Activision needs to step up and say, hey, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to build this big tournament, and we're going to promote our game as an esports title. Whether or not they will ever do that, I don't know, because Call of Duty's always been marketed as this like shooter, not generic shooter, but it was one of the first, and that's what it's always been, is like anyone can play it. It's for everyone, not just like esports and competitive. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that, is the company that owns the game plays a major role in the success of the game as an esport.
I think kind of to build off that, I think even just doing tiny things like the LCS is pretty regimentally scheduled. You know, it's pretty, you know, teams play at this time and this time every weekend. I think just maybe having more matches and have them pretty rigidly scheduled to where, all right, this matches A, B, and C always happen on this day at this time, and I think that's just good because it's really easy to keep up with.
Yeah, and that's where the whole like in-house Apple style thing comes from, is like that helps build the schedule. That's because you have one company saying, hey, this is what's going to happen at this time and everyone's going to be here and this is how it's going to work. And that helps solve the problem of, hey, is there a match this weekend or is there something going on? I don't know. I never know what's going on because there's none of this is technically official.
Yeah, it makes it just so much easier to follow.
Oh yeah.
Versus something like Overwatch, where there's like sporadic tournaments, but you never really know when a tournament does come up. It's like, all right, well, when does Cloud9 play?
Yeah, if you're not keeping up like hardcore with the schedule, it's really hard to know when things are going on. Whereas League, it's just like, oh, it's 2 in the afternoon on a weekend. That means that LCS is going on. You turn on LCS or go to the LoL Esports website. It's like, oh, there's when my team is playing, and I'm going to watch my team now.
Yeah, just tiny things like that.
Convenience.
Yeah, just convenience. I think would be a huge help.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I think.
Oh yeah, you go.
I think that another thing that Riot's done really well is coming down to two different things. One, starting with game design, and just making the experience of watching the game the exact same of how you play it. You can tell who is who. There's a lot of pretty colors flying around. There's people jumping around, but like when it comes down to it, like watching it is really easy because it all happens exactly like how you would watch it while playing, and I think that makes it a lot easier. Where something like Overwatch, that they flip between players, you can't really tell who's who. You just know that it's like a Lucio or Zarya.
A lot of Overwatch is free cam, right? Like it's like top down, looking at the whole battlefield rather than like from a first person perspective, right?
Not in my experience. I normally just
most
watch
Overwatch
Apex,
that I've
though.
seen is first person.
Oh
Yeah.
really? I must have. Man, I watched like one tournament of Overwatch a long time ago, and it was like free cam, and it was like super wonky, and I had no clue what was going on.
Oh, it's so hard, and there's only like 20 something heroes, and each team only picks from like 10. It's always like either Lucio, Ana, or Mercy each round for either team. The tanks are always the same. The DPS is always the same. So, I think that leads into my second point, is that Riot's done a really good job controlling the meta and keeping, for the most part, keeping a good grasp on what's strong and making sure that nothing is too strong, but keeping it within a fresh aspect, that it's not completely obvious that some heroes or champions are too strong, like Lucio per se, who always gets picked in Overwatch.
I think I can agree with that to an extent, because there's always, with every meta, there's always pick or ban champions that are really, really strong and that you have to either ban them or pick them, obviously, such as like Elise has been that champion many, many times. Nidalee was that way for a long time. It always tends to be junglers a lot of times. But I do agree that there's a wider variety of characters that are chosen in League. And I think that also just stems from the fact that there's not as many characters in Overwatch. But it does... there always is that feel of like, man, there's really not that many characters in this game. It was when you're watching competitive anyways, because it's like, man, there's always the same people.
Yeah, and I think that's something that League's done super well. Within like a year, Overwatch is coming up to a year, I think, soon of release, and they're still not that much further ahead from where they started. I think they've only added what, Ana, Arisa, and 2 maps, I think. So
There was like Sombra
oh,
as well.
and Sombra.
Yeah.
But a League, within like 2 months added what, like 10 heroes or something upon season
way
1
back
release and shit like
way
that.
back when they released a lot of champions, and
Yeah,
I think
it
a
was
lot of that was because they didn't really have an outlook on the kind of balance they wanted. They were just like, oh, this works, like this champion sounds cool, these abilities are cool, let's release them, and then they would be completely broken, as we've seen many a time, because a lot of old champions have kits that don't really work anymore. In like League of Legends, they're very difficult to balance. So, and I think a lot of that is just growing pains of a game that's not even a year old yet. You're always going to have a small amount of characters to start out with, or balance issues starting out, because League's been around for like 8 years now, 7 or 8 years,
Something like that, yeah.
Overwatch is approaching their first, and so Riot's had much more time to balance something like that, and it's also their only game, and this is, I believe, Blizzard's first FPS game they've ever made, and so I think they're probably still trying to figure out a lot of what they need to do with the game to get it into like a really good state of balance.
Okay, last point for me, then I'm done, because we're running out of time. I think one of the biggest things that's Riot's done has injected the game with a ton of personalities that make it enjoyable to come back for hundreds of hours. And best of all, I think what Riot did that has made it a more played game than any other game is making it free.
Being free is definitely a big factor in that, because anyone will play League. Like, someone just randomly downloads League and it's like, hey, they go to their friends, like, hey man, you should, like, I downloaded this free game and it's really good, there's a ton to do, like, you guys should play it with me. Or like someone joins a friend group and their like all that friend group plays League, it's like, oh yeah, just download the game, it's completely free. And that's one of the reasons why the game got so big in the first place, was because it was completely free, and at the time that was almost unheard of. And so
it can play on potatoes too.
Oh yeah, it's a
Toasters,
super easy game to run.
Anything.
Yeah, Overwatch is a little more difficult to run than League, if I remember correctly.
For sure. Yeah,
and it's also not free. You have to buy it.
Yeah,
there is that barrier
expensive
to entry that League doesn't really have.
But saying that, Overwatch is going to be free for a weekend in 2 weeks. I believe it's. Oh shit! Well, it's like the 26th to 29th or something like that.
Yeah, having free weekends definitely does help a lot to promote playing the game.
I'm done. I have nothing else to add.
All right. Well,
goodbye.
Really nice back and forth, guys. Good job. I guess we should be closing out.
Yeah, that's fine.
Does anyone want to try to predict the WE versus G2 game, since that's really the only game that matters? since SKT is going to win MSI anyway, we should at least probably try to predict second place.
I think that WE versus G2, I like, as much as I want to see G2 win something for once, I have to go with WE. G2's been too inconsistent as of late. They haven't proven to be able to step up when it really matters, and WE has looked nothing but, or their strength has been nothing but increasing over the entire course of the tournament. And recently they looked really strong, as well as they showed the ability to pull out random pocket picks that no one is prepared for. And you know what G2's big weakness is? Things they're not prepared for. So I have a feeling that WE will prepare stuff that they haven't shown before. G2 won't be prepared for it, and they're just going to get run over. It might go to 5 games if G2 is able to adapt, but I'm probably going to predict World Elite wins 3-1.
Frozen, what about you?
I think if Weldon wants to make a legacy and become the best Western coach ever, I think it starts now. And I think in a best of 5 that G2 is one of the better teams, if not the best. Well, I think in the West that they are the best team at best of series. So I think it's going to be interesting going in, just because I don't think WE was a favorite going into the beginning of the Chinese split, and it's pretty crazy that they're here. But I could see it going either way. So I'm going to say that Weldon is going to pull them ahead with a 3-1. And that's not because it shouldn't be close. I just think that one of the games is going to come down to a coin toss, and G2 is going to win that one.
All right. That's fair. I can see that. I think it could definitely go either way. There's very strong arguments that could be made for both teams.
I'm looking forward to the memes, so I want WE to win.
You want to see G2 get shit on by Reddit again?
I want to see them fail you guys.
That's cruel.
Yes, it is indeed. Does anyone have any moments of the week they want to share before we...
I'm done with my
finish off
semester
this?
at college. I'm
Hey.
gonna be a junior next year. Yay, summer is here. Woohoo.
Woo.
Unrelated, Twice dropped a new song. It's pretty hype because it's made by JYP, so I guess that's all I got.
Mine is the Thorin today uploaded an interview of he interviewed Jensen as
Hot.
part of his reflections series, and they kind of discussed like his career and what it was like kind of coming onto C9, having to replace Hai, and leading up to kind of now, and picking his brain on a couple other subjects. So it was really interesting because we don't really see Jensen's perspective a lot.
Yeah, he's not a talker. Is
Yeah,
he?
we usually see the team through like Sneaky's eyes because he's pretty candid on stream about stuff that goes
Yeah,
on.
he talks a lot more because whenever people ask him questions like through donations and stuff, he'll usually answer it to some extent. But Jensen just doesn't stream that much, and he doesn't talk that much just in general. Like, he's not interviewed a whole lot. So
Yeah, it was really nice to see kind of more of the inner workings of our superstar mid laner.
yeah, for sure.
I'll have to listen to that tomorrow. Oh, and
It's really good.
Oh, okay. Actual moment of the week. I just thought of it is watching Sneaky's dance on Ray's stream. It just seems he has it perpetually going. It's just Sneaky's face going back and forth. It's so fucking dumb, but it's so awesome because
Amazing.
Ray is now my favorite thing ever and favorite stream number to watch for sure.
I really like Ray. I feel like he's super underrated in terms
He's
of
so fucking
like
stupid.
people being. He's not super known by the community, but he seems, every time I've ever seen him, he seems hilarious.
He memes so hard,
As a member of C9 should.
and it's
he's just a pure Cloud9 boy. That's all he is.
It's not like a bunny foo-foo memeing. He kind of says it in his own way, and it's so fucking dumb. And it helps that he's rank 1, so, or was at least at rank 1. He might have dropped down due to decay. I haven't looked.
Yeah, he was visiting Korea for a couple weeks, I think. So he probably dropped down a few spots. All right. Well, thank you for listening to the 37th episode of Bodied the Cloud9 Fancast. Feel free to tweet questions and feedback to us at C9Bodied or email us at bodiedfancast@gmail.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to us in Apple Podcast. We really appreciate it if you would do so, because then you get updated on whenever we upload a little episode or whatever. We'll try to answer questions on the next episodes. So keep those questions coming in if you got them. Thanks for listening, and we'll see everyone next time.
Bye bye.
Bye, guys.